Let's talk about one of my absolute favorite albums, and hands down one of the greatest albums of all time. In the 1970s, Joni Mitchell was pushing the envelope from what was expected from your folk or pop vocalist. She was writing amazing lyrics and looking for something greater from the musicians that she performed and recorded with. This led to one of the greatest collaborations ever, but also one of the greatest collections of songs ever, rooted in amazing storytelling and painted with harmonic colors that were definitely informed by jazz music. I'm talking about 1976's Hejira, an album where incredible storytelling and poetry meets the highest level of music. And as is the story with much great music, it rewards you more each time you listen to it. So let's get into it. Let's talk about this album from the bottom, starting with the three amazing bassists that contributed to this amazing album. First, a disclaimer for all you diehard Joni Mitchell fans out there. I'm not going to be talking about Amelia or A Strange Boy because those tracks don't include any bass playing on them. I apologize, but I hope you enjoy it. And for you gearheads out there, I'm going to be using 3 different instruments to try to recreate parts of some of these tracks. First will be my Fender Jazz style Warmoth Franken Fretless I got when I was a teenager. Second is my very trusty Fender Jazz Geddy Lee signature bass. And lastly, I'll be using my 1972 Pullman double bass for the track Blue Motel Room. Also, in a departure from most of the videos in this series, I've decided to not include note-for-note transcriptions of most of the bass lines you're going to hear me play. In lieu of that, and because of the lyrical genius of Joni Mitchell, instead I'm going to include my favorite lyrics from each song, along with just some chord changes, which is what the musicians had to work with in all of these sessions. I hope you enjoy it. Our first bassist really doesn't need an introduction. He was one of the greatest bassists, heck, musicians and composers that we've ever seen. The story goes that in 1976, when Joni Mitchell was on the road, her guitarist Robin Ford played her a copy of the newly released solo debut album by Jaco Pastorius, and it blew her mind. 1976 was an amazing year for Jaco Pastorius. In addition to his album coming out, he recorded on releases by Pat Metheny, Ian Hunter, and he can be seen in this video by trombonist Albert Mangelsdorf for his Trialogue live album with Alphonse Mouzon on drums. He had also just joined Weather Report earlier this year and recorded on their album Black Market. He appears on 4 of these tracks, and for these sessions, he used his classic 1962 fretless Fender jazz bass, aka the Bass of Doom, which they used direct and also a mic'd acoustic 360 amplifier. They were touring when my solo record had come out. She just tried to get a hold of me, and that was it really. I just went and played. I didn't even know anything about Joni Mitchell. I hadn't even heard her music. It was really fun coming in from nowhere and adding this thing. It was a nice combination. What an awesome way to kick off an awesome record. This groove is really cool, and Jaco Pastorius is making his presence felt immediately. Now, first off, I recently heard that Joni Mitchell made a lot of these tracks as travel music. And when I say travel music, I mean that the music was portable. She wasn't using a keyboard. We hear that right away. Guitars, bass, congas. It's infectious. And Jaco is letting us know exactly where he is using harmonics at the beginning of the piece. He's using 2 sets of harmonics here to outline the chord. The first is G, D, A. The second is B, D, A. Color tones really bringing out the amazing harmony. If you ever got to see video of Jaco doing this with Joni Mitchell, he definitely could play this live. You got eyes like you are. But when he recorded this album, they got a really great sound by him double tracking. So what you're hearing is one track of bass doing the actual bass playing part, and then another track of bass playing the harmonics on top of it. There's a layered effect to his tracks on this album. It sounds almost like a bass choir. Also, really check out the way he dances on the bass. It's not too busy, but there's that 16th note content we know from Jaco kind of sneaking its way through. Something very typical from Joni Mitchell. There's not really a hook to this song. There's no chorus. It's just a form that repeats and keeps coming back to this kind of C major sound. I really love where the song takes us. And she's dropping in this almost recitative type vocal delivery at times. And don't forget Bobby Hall on the congas. Joni Mitchell's association with jazz musicians didn't start with Jaco Pastorius. When bassist Max Bennett started playing with Joni Mitchell, he had already played with the likes of Stan Kenton, Ella Fitzgerald, Peggy Lee, the Crusaders, and he was an original member of the fusion band The LA Express with Tom Scott. Not to mention cutting sides for the Monkees, the Partridge Family, Frank Zappa, and film and TV projects including Enter the Dragon with Lalo Schifrin. In a 2011 interview, he explained Joni Mitchell's studio process with her musicians. She was very sharp. Even though she couldn't read a note, in every other respect there was nothing amateurish about her approach at all. She really didn't understand harmonic structures as far as talking about this or about that. She just played and we sketched out what we needed and we made up our own parts as we went. When Max Bennett cut his 2 tracks for Hejira, he was taking a break from a very lucrative studio career to tour with Joni Mitchell in her band. But he still made time to cut records with Bette Midler and Stephen Bishop that year, among others. I love the tone that this record sets. I also love the irony of a song about times changing and an old blues man really being set up by this interlude that's almost progressive rock sounding. I love that line, and what the bass is doing is kind of outlining the upper structures of an A minor chord, including the 9th and the 7th. And at times, Max Bennett will hang on that B while the chord changes to a G chord, and he's hanging on that 3rd. It's a really great sound. From the sound of the record and some pictures taken around that time, it's a pretty sure bet that his instrument of choice was a Fender Precision, and we can really hear how thick it sounds on his tracks. When I first heard this album years ago, I owned it on tape. This was the track that spoke to me. It's the darkest, it's the thickest of all the tracks on the record. It's in C sharp minor, which is a really juicy key to play. It was also the first song that Jaco tracked for the album. Now right away, you're going to hear overdubs in the guitar when the guitar enters. This informed how Jaco approached the album. He didn't just lay down one bass track. He used multiple tracks to get different kind of effects. It's quite amazing to see how he develops this idea all the way to the end of the album. Now pay close attention to the opening of the song. What you're going to hear is a guitar pan stereo this side, a guitar pan stereo this side. But when Joni starts singing, and when that bass melody comes in next to her, it's dead center and mixed way up front. The bass is now a voice. Joni, in effect, is singing a duet with Jaco next to her. Jaco does a really amazing job of really fattening up the low end on the bottom bass track. He uses fifths a lot. He also uses nice legato notes with the octave ringing to get this huge sound. It's almost like there's a choir of basses happening. He's also using a variety of techniques on top. In addition to playing kind of lyrically, he's using different effects. In the last minute of the song alone, you can hear 4 separate tracks where he's playing bottom bass, tremolos, high melody bass, and even sliding harmonics. Combine that with Joni's storytelling and it's amazing. Talk about your story songs. This one is great. This track clocks in at almost 9 minutes, and the harmonic structure pretty much stays similar throughout, but the storytelling aspect escalates. The emotion, the angst, the longing. This record just has all of it. Now, as far as the bass playing goes, Max Bennett is giving us another kernel that's not just your regular kind of bass playing. Song for Sharon starts with this really great E-flat minor figure, and it ends with the same figure. This figure is a hemiola. It's built on groups of eighth notes. When we're in 4 and we start breaking things up in groups of 3, it starts falling in odd parts. And this figure from Song from Sharon is a hemiola based on groups of 3 eighth notes. Not to be undone, Max Bennett is playing his own hemiola in the bass, only he's echoing the guitar part now. His accents fall in a different place. Also, that note that he's landing on, that's a really great color tone, we say in jazz. It gives our harmony a lot of color. It's the 9th. It's a really jazzy note, not especially bass-like, but incredibly musical. Oh yes. Waiter, can I get an extra order of Jaco with this? Jaco is at his peak powers on this track. This is straight up groove. Jaco's a master of playing 16th note grooves, but usually we associate him playing with faster tempos than this. And at 85 beats per minute, he really gets to lay into what he's doing. Surprisingly, he's not filling up all the sound. He's using space, he's using accents, and man, he is grooving the heck out of this track. Two remarkable things about this track. First of all, Joni Mitchell uses a drop E-flat tuning. So Jaco also tunes down to E-flat so he can hit that really cool harmonic chord that he's hitting right at the top of the verse. So he's really playing like this minor 6/9 chord. From top to bottom, using harmonics, he's playing a G-flat, an F natural, and a C natural. The tension you hear is the rubbing that happens between the top two notes. The G-flat and the F natural are a half step away. So there's some dissonance there, but it's really cool. It's also worth mentioning that Joni Mitchell's rhythm guitar playing on this track and on the whole record absolutely smokes. I'd also be remiss if I didn't mention the contribution of the great Larry Carlton on guitar and what he adds to the final mixes of these tracks. He makes this album go from being very good to absolutely amazing. Our last great bassist, but definitely not the least, was the late great Chuck Domanico, who played acoustic bass on this track. Chuck was a mainstay in the studio scene of Los Angeles throughout the 60s and the 70s. He played with everybody: Frank Sinatra, Barbra Streisand, Carmen McRae, Henry Mancini, and many, many others. In 1976, the year that this album was recorded, that year alone, he recorded with Ray Charles, Shelly Manne, The Tubes, and more TV and film soundtracks than I can possibly name. I truly love how in one track on this album, he said something that neither of the other two guys could. Here's what we can say is Joni leaning heavily into her love affair with jazz music. Here's something really unique right away that you can hear. A big, fat, acoustic sound of a mic right in front of a double bass. Now, this wasn't really the sound du jour of the 70s. Many of the bass players were switching to playing with pickups on their instruments and going directly into the board. But getting a fat, acoustic sound like this was not the most popular way to record the double bass during that time. Also, check out the drummer John Guerin playing brushes. By playing brushes, he really opens up the sound and he lets the length of the bass notes ring out and be heard. Chuck Domanico is doing something called playing in two. Instead of walking 4/4 quarter notes like you usually hear in jazz, he's playing half notes and kind of letting the groove ride and bounce and filling in every 4 to 8 bars. Now, if you listen closely, it's not terribly different from what Jaco did on some of his tracks. Chuck is being pretty adventurous with his fills, and they get a little more complex as the song moves on. It wasn't necessarily a common thing to hear a double bassist going for the types of things that Chuck is going for when he's filling in these phrases. If you really like this track, I would highly recommend that you check out Phoebe Snow's self-titled debut from just a couple years before this. Chuck is also the bassist on that record, and it's got a very similar vibe and sound to this track, and her singing is unbelievable. The sound of his instrument, the singing, lyrical tone that he gets, his perfect intonation, it's all immaculate. But probably his most recognizable characteristic was this chorus effect that he was known to have gotten, especially on tracks with Weather Report like A Remark You Made and others. A chorus effect is something we take for granted now. It's very easy to plug into a pedal or to fire up a plug-in. Back then, Jaco did it the old-fashioned way. Listen to this line and the way that it sounds against these beautiful chords when played on fretless bass. I've multi-tracked the same part 2 more times. Listen to the effect that's created just by having multiple tracks of the same part being played. This was chorus before chorus. There are slight variations in my intonation between tracks and rhythm. It almost sounds like a group of people are playing at once. This was the kind of chorus we heard Jaco put on Wax, and it's glorious, and he uses it to great effect on this track. In the ending of this track, there's just no words for it. He keeps adding basses till it's practically a choir. And it ends with bass fading out, almost like his ghost is walking off into the distance. It's quite poetic and emotional and a fitting end to an amazing record. The story that is the album Hejira is an amazing one. From beginning to end. Truth be told, I knew who Jaco Pastorius was a long time before I knew who Joni Mitchell was. But listening to her, being introduced to her, opened up a whole new world to me of lyricism and poetry and imagery that I could have never imagined. And Jaco and his music opened that door for me. This is a great, great album. If you don't have it and you've never checked it out, listen to it, but sit down with the lyrics as well. Listen to how the music reflects what's being told and how someone like Joni Mitchell is a master at telling us stories with words and with sounds. Not to mention a young Jaco Pastorius who was the greatest bass player in the world at that moment. Let's celebrate Joni and every amazing musician that made this album a classic one. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, I'd appreciate it if you could give it a thumbs up. And hey, what's your favorite track on Hejira? Tell me in the comments below. If you're not a subscriber and you like jazz, bass-centric content, what are you waiting for? Don't miss my next video. Hit that subscribe button. Until next time, take care of yourself, and please love your neighbor.